a previous video, we talked about some of the different kinds of idles, in this case like a neutral or passive idle and a combat idle. I made the decision to go ahead and focus on the combat idle because then I could start looking at the things that branch off of that, like the attacks and the dodges and that sort of thing. So this was the first pass I made at a combat idle with this character. And there was a couple of things that I got in terms of feedback that I needed to address. So if I turn on the drawing here, probably this top right corner, you can see it the best. This axe blade moves side to side in this view, and it shouldn't move side to side because this is where all the weight of that blade is. This should be pretty stationary, and it should then affect things down the line in terms of movement. So if I play that again, I think you can see how this axe is kind of moving side to side. So that's a problem. Another problem that I needed to address was some of the negative space issues. Like I have just this little tiny sliver of negative space here. It would probably be better if we made that a little bit larger so that it reads more like negative space. And then probably one of the big things that was suggested to me that I hadn't even thought about was, why don't you take your cycle and copy that cycle, say 5 times. And then each one of those iterations, change the timing on it slightly. Make it longer, make it shorter, make the breaths bigger, make the breaths shallower. And what that'll do is then you can take those 5 cycles and loop those. And it'll give this overall idle a more organic feeling. So here is the second pass of the combat idle. Here I addressed a lot of those concerns from the first pass. I think you can see the axe is really solid now. It's maintaining where the weight should be of that axe as it pivots on the ground. And I also addressed some of those timing or taking the iterations of the cycles and lengthening or shortening the timing. And so now I was given some more recommendations or suggestions that I could do to improve this idle further. And probably the biggest ones were I didn't have a lot of side-to-side movement on this character. And you would expect things like the center of gravity here. You would expect that to maybe rotate back and forth a little bit. You might expect the weight of the character on his feet might be maybe on the balls of the feet, so the heels might come in a little bit and go back out. Different things, and even subtle things like the fingers, they might loosen or tighten their grip. And then some of the other things that were mentioned are kind of model specific things that maybe I can try to tweak to make them look a little bit better. I've got kind of a goofy thing going on here with the upper leg and where it joins in with the hips and the other leg. And maybe just the way that the rig is built, I've got this kind of inner arm shape that changes, as he's going up and down, it changes and it looks a little bit weird. So we of course go back to Maya and we start to address some of those concerns. And once I have those figured out, then we go through the process to get that cycle thing and the different iterations working. So the first thing I do is start with offsetting some of the different controls. I'm figuring that the driving force behind the breathing or whatever is really in the chest area probably, in this particular character. So I'll start with that and then move outwards. Everything outwards from the chest will be delayed a little bit. So the head, the shoulder controls, I might delay a couple frames. The arms, I may delay a couple frames. And then within those things, I might delay a frame or two. And now that I've got a single cycle working pretty well, now we can duplicate that cycle. And we talked about like 5 times might be a good number to do that. And then within each one of those cycles vary the timing. So I'll copy the cycle, paste it, and maybe shorten it by 5 frames, and then paste it and lengthen it by 5 frames or 10 frames, and so on. Basically, I'm varying each cycle in terms of the timing. And once I've got this iteration of cycles feeling pretty well, now I can start going into individual cycles and adding some noise Maybe the feet shift a little bit. Maybe the hand moves up and down the axe handle a little bit. Maybe the chest scales a little bit differently depending on whether it's a deep breath or a shallow breath. And so we have the third pass at the combat idle. And this one's pretty close. I still want to have it looked at again one more time, but I'm pretty sure all I'm going to do is polish things up from here and call it good. So now I have a combat idle, right? Now everything that I want to do from here will branch off of this idle. It'll start in this pose. I'll probably start next with, say, a light attack. Okay, well that's it for now. We'll talk to you again soon.